Hello, my name is Joe Mann. I'm a staff cloud solution architect at VMware, part of the worldwide cloud practice covering the VMware Cloud Provider Partner Program. Today we're going to have a look at App Launchpad for VMware Cloud Director, provide a high-level overview of the solution, and so we can learn a little bit more about how we're helping service providers build developer-ready clouds with tools such as App Launchpad. So first, let's talk a little bit about some of the problems that App Launchpad actually solves. So first, from a service provider perspective, you're using App Launchpad to attract developers, with more modern tooling and experience. So providing them with a similar experience to what they're seeing in the hyperscalers. From a service provider perspective, you're able to quickly monetize new kind of routes of consumption for your developers and offering a more rich service catalog for these developers to consume. And you're really providing a method to go from simple infrastructure as a service to more application platform as a service with these service catalogs powered by App Launchpad. So as you can see on the side, 58% of cloud developers said they're primary decision makers, while 22% of cloud developers are on a committee that make decisions about infrastructure and tools. So while we traditionally don't think about the developers as driving IT infrastructure decisions, they're very much a part of that process, kind of in the new way of thinking. So cloud purchase decisions are shifting a little bit from IT admins to developers. The developers wield more power than they maybe have in the past, especially when it comes to controlling where their workloads go to. So if a developer or an SRE or a DevOps member needs access to an application or code, usually they grab a company credit card, go to one of the hyperscalers and provisions the tool sets they need, because the hyperscalers thus far have done a pretty good job of providing a service catalog with advanced services, SDKs, CI/CD tool sets, all built on top of their own infrastructure. And what we're trying to do with the developer-ready cloud, which App Launchpad is a part of, is create a similar experience for developers with that our VCPP partners can consume and provide. So being able to provide a portal into these VMware Cloud Director managed environments for application services and tooling, improving the developer experience with tools like App Launchpad, and then even modernizing infrastructure choices with the container service extension. So bringing Kubernetes as a service into the VCD world is really important as well. So these are all different pieces that go into building the developer-ready cloud. So we really want to help our service providers capture new cloud native workloads, monetize advanced app services, expand cloud native customers to on-prem infrastructure, and increase customer cloud consumption. So that's the value that we see for our service providers in building these developer-ready clouds. So now let's take a look at Bitnami and the VMware Marketplace and how these tools are helping our providers, build these developer-ready clouds. So first, let's take a look at how application architectures, are changing. So, in the 2000s and before, we really were looking at monolithic applications where you built an application on top of a database, on top of a web server that were generally what we consider monolithic and running on a single VM or even on a bare metal host in a data center somewhere. So nowadays, we've really moved from these simple, centralized, monolithic architectures to more complex, decentralized, microservice-based architecture. So developers are looking to be able to kind of choose which application language they need, their database, their cache solution, their logging solution, and then be able to deploy that on any infrastructure they see fit. So being able to have the flexibility and the confidence to know that if they deploy their application on-prem, in a Kubernetes cluster, in a hyperscaler, in a VCPP partner managed environment, that the application will run, and they have a high degree of certainty that it's compatible across the entire stack. So that has changed a lot in the last 20 years or so. So what does Bitnami do, and has Bitnami done to help bridge that gap? So a big part of what Bitnami does is maintain and create the Bitnami community catalog, which is a catalog that consists of 180 different applications, over 1,000 releases a month, over a million installs per month, and almost 1.5 billion of compute hours per year generated by applications from the Bitnami community catalog. So Bitnami maintains this catalog of applications that can run on any environment in any format. So OVA-based deployments, which is what we'll talk about with App Launchpad, traditional virtual machine-based deployments. They also maintain a container catalog with Helm charts for orchestrating application development in Kubernetes clusters, and general well-architected frameworks for deploying these applications. As I already mentioned, Bitnami has a huge focus on making sure these applications in the catalog run on any platform. So AWS and Azure actually use the Bitnami community catalog for their service catalog in their cloud portals. We look to leverage the Bitnami community catalog in conjunction with App Launchpad as well to enable our VCPP providers to launch, to enable their developers to launch applications through VCD in a very simplistic manner. So the catalog itself is comprised of OVA images, Docker container images, Helm charts for orchestrating deployment on Kubernetes clusters. So as far as the process goes and what this looks like, the Bitnami team essentially takes open source applications and services from the upstream code, pulls them in, does all kinds of testing to ensure that these applications run on the various platforms, and then publishes them in the Bitnami community catalog. And so once they're available in the catalog, they are available for deploying through the VMware Cloud Marketplace on any of the VMware tools, as well as available in the community catalog for deployment on other infrastructure as well. So the Bitnami community catalog is one option for workloads and applications that is under the hood of App Launchpad. And I think this is the big takeaway for just specifically Bitnami, is that they believe that they are driving 1.5 billion plus hours of compute per year. So utilizing their application service catalog is a nice stepping stone for our service providers to increase consumption in their clouds. So let's take a look at App Launchpad specifically and have a look at the different kind of solution, how it works, how it integrates with VMware Cloud Director. So from a provider's perspective, the provider logs into the Cloud Provider Hub and accesses the marketplace as a provider. Bitnami is a catalog that's available via the Cloud Marketplace. Then the provider selects the Bitnami catalog and pushes that to a VMware Cloud Director catalog. Then the provider shares that catalog with the tenant. And classically now the tenant uses the VMware Cloud Director tenant portal to access the catalog and deploy the application. But in that process, they have to make some decisions and choose things like networking and compute, and they have to size the application. So what we've done with App Launchpad is really provide kind of a single portal in the VCD tenant UI to allow them to kind of simply provision these applications. So App Launchpad sits as a UI element in the VCD tenant portal and provides a curated catalog of applications. So as I mentioned, it can pull from the Bitnami community catalog and showcase the Bitnami apps. We also have third-party ISVs that are publishing apps to VMware Cloud Marketplace, and we even have providers that are building their own custom apps and publishing them into App Launchpad. So App Launchpad really gives the developers that one-click application deployment because it automates the VM creation, so the infrastructure creation, networking, firewall, assigning IPs. So really no knowledge of the underlying infrastructure is required of the developers. They're just button-clicking their WordPress app or their LAMP stack, and they get access to that application as soon as the provisioning is finished. So as far as the value prop goes, This really decreases time to market for our tenants, so they can access a large portfolio of out-of-the-box applications, launch apps in seconds without having to kind of finagle around with the underlying infrastructure. Also, it decreases the operational overhead, so the developers don't have to learn how to use VCD, for example. They don't have to learn how to interact with the VCD UI to assign networks, to change or just to assign compute resources, and it really provides a self-service portfolio for the developers, that so IT operations are not really required to partner with the developers to deploy applications. From a provider perspective, it's really focused on building a new revenue stream. So being able to target developers that want that out-of-the-box application platform type experience for one-click deployment is really important. And so being able to elevate that positioning from infrastructure as a service to application platform as a service really can help our VCPP partners capture that developer mindshare. And then, finally, application platform can be curated by the service provider. So that allows the service provider to build their own application services to share via App Launchpad, or kind of have the control and curation over something like the Bitnami community catalog, or bringing in third-party ISV apps into App Launchpad. And it also adds value to existing service. So basically offering a modern user experience for kind of the existing application services running in VMware Cloud Director. So the high-level use cases from a service provider perspective, the service provider uses App Launchpad to build, a portfolio of applications to offer as services to their customers. So the portfolio can consist of Bitnami applications, ISV apps from VMware Cloud Marketplace, or even in-house apps. So apps installed by the provider or the tenant. And the tenant can even build their own apps and integrate them into App Launchpad. From a tenant's perspective, they use App Launchpad to easily access and consume a really broad range of out-of-the-box applications on VMware Cloud Director. So that wraps it up for our high-level overview of Application Launchpad. We're also going to do a quick demo of App Launchpad from a tenant and service provider perspective. Thank you.